Today I'm Chico going to navigate in the process and in the funnel automatic.
Okay. I'm live. Setting position line track lines and high settings, recognition of timelines, line position interference. So I'll calculate and modify how we set locations. There's a lot of reverberation channel lines in the moon setting. So I had to reset locations to another live setting. So I'll record location when it comes into moon operation as command center. You have to really understand the track lines and high setting position. So there's a lot of information system locations that you guys have their line condition to. Interlacing interline connection high system. Try to understand that. Imagine that you are in position sitting down and you're watching TV, all right? And there's lacing lines like this, okay? Static waves, static interference, volumes and volumes that calculate this high line positions off track line condition. So today we're going to get into line connection high system. We're going to give you a tour of your moon setting, your operation signal locations. Now, this time you can touch anything that positions, okay? Because you're going to be going through 12,000 energy line conditions of washes. The center communication line interference in direct signals in position line condition is all levels of your moon operation. Space command, space charters, line conditions, what you can do, what you can't do, where you go, what you see, what you don't see, why you're seeing this, why you're seeing that is all adaptation to the mind setting. Okay, so you are awake into your moon now, and your moon is in full operation. You have to learn how to get in a relationship, partnership with your system first, partnership line setting to the moon. And the moon finds a way to see you through eye division, eye rotation, eye center, rotation and interference. This is the process where we come into the moon and the sun and the sun and the moon. They come in position locations of yin and yang. You need yin and yang to balance out anything in mind adaptation where you are in perception. So now is the time to understand how to use prime numbers. Internet position locations 1 over line setting, 1 over pi, calculates high setting interference. Video graph line screens. Doot, 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 doot. So really understand how to recognize these line settings. Okay, it's important you understand how to use the video graph line rotations. Code signal is a communication graph. A communication graph is line setting line and position locations. See my watch line? See the triangulation line splits its position location at time center? See it? See how it's going in position locations in the 12 central calculations? See how it's pi in position location line setting? Your moon is set up into 24,000 lines of pi. You're in 24,000 grounds of moon in space line conditions. The positions of the VR sets are in 24 grounds of pi. Okay, so we all have to understand the rotation spin. We all have to understand the XJ line setting. And XJ is a jump scar, setting position locations into position line setting. Now, this is a 4-day window set, right? If you look at the watch, you can see the 4 line settings, right? 4 line settings, and then you get into pi, right? See how it's going around and round and round and round, right? That's the avatar going around through pi. And every time it goes around through 4, doot, doot, doot. So it's set in RPM. So like when you're driving a standard, you go from one shift to another shift. You're shifting from position locations into 5-line setting. Now, standard 5 is position locations. A standard H is positions to a Lamborghini or anything above that setting. But you have to really understand the position locations to its RPM. Because what you're doing is you're remming. And you're gear shifting. Right? So, understanding what your avatar is doing through travels of 4-point settings into pi. It gets a ping. You feel it. in your body conception setting. Ding, ding, right? So every time it goes around 12 set, it's direct line conditions. Now you have a 12-meter line rotations into one sector. One sector over pi is one balance over position. Now, this is where it gets complicated. So when you get in position line directions, you really have to understand how to use the moon sets at operations at system locations, because it's a command center. It's an operation system. It's a high positions to a space command line and position location track line. Okay. It's a teleportation unit. So anything that you want it to be, it can travel in anywhere it wants as long as you are in control of your moon. Because if you're not in control of your moon, you're not in control of your minds. Let me say that again. You are not in control of your minds. Okay. That's a true understanding when it comes to line position location in a level setting. The most important thing is that your moon, all moon line settings, all position track lines, has 12 million protect grids. 12 million protection grids around its setting. Okay? So it's got a metal face. Interline its calculation set line. Powders when you walk on the moon line rotations. But it's metal. And inside it's hollow, which is all computer operation of your set locations into hard setting. The recognition timeline is all position location, how you see yourself in your moon. Your motion line connections, your high position location, your settings, satellites, deposit value. Really understand how to use it through all calculations to your moon. So the recognition line and rotation interference of high position locations. Let's start with this line condition on this position into 4 set locations. There's your moon, right? So your moon comes in position location to this line setting. Gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's traveling, right? See? So your moon has to understand what it's doing through shape. Okay? It's creating shapes of travel, right? Like I said with the grid setting, how it does it on its own. So the trifactor line condition line system. Let's change illumination graph lines, setting direct locations. All right, so line communication setting. Okay, before we travel to your moon, you guys have to learn how to understand the geometric pattern, how the moon sets its line position locations into zero line, into flux capacitor location setting. Recognition line condition high system, position location in a zero line rotation in set locations. Setting line position of graph line string in set locations into all line conditions and 3 weather pattern line interference. Okay? Setting position locations to energetic balls, line rotations of dimensional line positions into center calculation streamline settings. Recognition line calculation line interference of weather pattern correlation setting, setting direct signals in position of 2 panels of operation signal, setting a line and position location into set location high setting. That's what your moon just finished doing, all through travel. So you have to really understand how your moon works through pi. So you have a clock line setting in set locations. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's what a clock has. And it's got 2 bands and position location set lines. Right, that's your watch. Now, recognition line condition has 0 line rotation in position, triangulation in set locations into 1 line of flux capacitor location. All right, so this is what your watch is. This is what it looks like. Okay, so inline interference line position location has pi in position, has pi in position, 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 and pi in position. Okay, now it's all recognition timelines, time sequence locations. Point dot sequence line position of panels. Now you got point line and digital frame line position location in high setting. Computer operation signals and rotation spin cycles in set locations. Channel operation line conditions, influx virus location. Now that's your watch. Now your watch sets line communications. Now this is where it sets up a 3-channel line rotation in position. Sets up a 6-line panel in operation and a 9-line rotation into an energy watch line, 936. So sending correlated line interference sets position location into position of travel. So your moon has to really recognize what it's doing through set locations into 3 set line conditions in set location. That's what your moon does. So when your moon travels, guys, through a watch, it has to recognize its pi through time. Space recognition line condition high system from 0 to 9. Now anything between 0 and 9 is position location of 10, 11, and 12. That's 3 set location through triangulation. Okay? Multipass. All right? All through the moon. All through the moon. So the moon has to recognize what you are doing in line communication, echo interference, echo chambers, line setting, line position, attract lines, high position locations into moon set locations, into your clock line settings, into your watch interference and set locations. Okay? So your moon can go forward, your moon can go back, and your moon can be set line communication setting. Setting position locations. This is your moon, right? So you're telling your moon to basically travel line setting. Okay, so it's traveling out in set location triangulation. Okay, your moon's here now. Okay, but it has to be in triangulation. Setting in triangulation line interference is 2 clock location settings, setting position. All right, so you got 12 line and you got a 24 sequence. You got a 48 line window and set locations to a 72 track locations. Now the track line sets line position locations into higher setting. Very complicated stuff, but your moon is extremely important to you through its ground center. Ground center line rotation and position. Okay? And the 144 sets position locations to its setting, which is a levels of a sail. See the sail? Sail recognition line connection is a metal face, metal force, metal set lines at high position of triangulation force lines. Line communication line signals sets position location high measure. That high measure sets position locations to its sail of set locations. Multipass. Now, once you understand how to set the moon line, we'll travel your line position locations. 6 over observation line interference, set line communication to team setting. Setting to Ultron calculation system and position locations and height interference and track location nanotech. Put the team line into moon set line rotation interference. Set position location track line. Here's a portal. Setting correlation. Have fun. You guys are on the moon. All right. So setting signals and line interference is 0 line rotation, 0 line position into magnetic highway information line setting in position of travel. 6 over pi in set line condition. Another 6 locations into lines at 9 equal line condition high system. 12,000 lines of energy line in rotations into energy watch position track line calculation settings. All right, so I'll give you guys line conditions of 10, 15 minutes. Have fun on your moon. All right, so moon setup. Okay, you got signals and band line interference. So you're getting this and graph location. You have to recognize these line condition graphs. That's the moon. All right, so this is really interesting too because you look at code signals. So everything that comes in like kinetic line and line rotation interference is prime numbers. Comes into odd and comes into even line position locations, right? So this comes into P-O-E, PO, right? So the polarities, the operation to its energy system to location settings. The operation line center line interference sets position location perceptions over position location. Setting direct signals in high center line position of track lines opens all position location human resonance, sets position location track lines and high setting position locations. So recognizing energy graph lines of your moon, setting position of track line. So it's center location, moon here, moon here, moon here, moon here, moon over here, moon over here, moon over here for locations, all through 0 setting, right? So energy graph line, setting line, interference line, rotation position, 0 operation into omega and set location setting. Multipass. So you have to really understand what your moon is. It's going to get more complicated now because your nanotech settings has to really recognize communication to its relationship, partnership. What do we all consume through? Energy. How do we use it? Through vibration. How do we use it through calculation? Frequency. How do we use it through color line, center line, position location, high system? Through track line conditions? Harmonics. Okay. So we all have to recognize all calculations of harmonics. How to use it set locations. So when you get a moon setting, that's my moon moving, right? My moon can move anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the atmosphere line. It can be this. That's my moon. Okay, that's my moon right there. You can't see it, but I can. So understanding it's not the size. It's the mind. So the mind can change anything to set locations. Now my moon is in position. Okay. Setting position, location, line condition, line system, like this in position line conditions. 4 line tracks, 0, 0, 0, 0. 4 line center line interference, and 0 gravity line position locations. My moon is set position location high setting. So you have to really understand how to use it through calculation. This forms all line in inference, sets position location high in line and rotation positions. So I can stand here and just catch my moon, right? Right? Set in a triangle, right? It travels. So it travels with you because it is you. Now, understanding the yin is understanding the yang. The process of the projection line center is understanding the light shades and shadows of the moon. The lighter side and the darker side of the moon line rotation is a track line communication of its communication line setting that sets up position. You have to understand how to balance these things out. Once you balance your signals and set location to co-weaving, co-traction, co-activation line settings into factors over pi, position, location, track line, communication line, interference, high position, location, calculation setting, then you get a position, location, all levels, communication line, line rotation, position, location, moon setting. Now, the reason why I'm talking fast is because my moon is traveling fast. That's so many line communication line interference. My moon sets line communications, 12 million, 24 million, 48 million, 72 line settings, and 27 line condition high settings in position of track lines, 144 trillion set lines of moon set location, all through 5-point locations. Digital frame, center calculation, center back position, center operation line setting, and center operation position location, moon setting line operation setting, heart set rotation set location, done by equation. All right, so when you see these things, you have to recognize what you're seeing and why you're seeing it, right? Because you guys are now in 60 line connections. You're in 60. 6 is line connection, all line centers are half pipe positions, the moon, right? So in that line connections, when it comes to Gypsy, sending lines of portals, and Heather in data line rotation interference, indirect locations, your job is understanding them through what they are doing through its process, through the team. How they set up their data, how they set up their portals is recognition to your setting to understand what they are doing through their moon setting. They are protecting their moon just as you are protecting your setting. So the most important thing is that you have a very, very powerful vessel of moon connection to your setting now. So once you understand the sequence locations, you go through ground lines of 0 in position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's start with 8 line setting. Now that's infinity 8, 8 in position location equals 8, 8 position locations. So this is your moon right there, right? That's your moon, right? So your moon surfaces in so many line-to-line rotation interference and high line position of track line condition system. Your moon has to be going faster than you. Why? Because it's reaching all timelines all at once. So setting signals and set location and manifestation line interference. 88 position line conditions, 88 position location line conditions, box line positions, and 2 line center line rotation. Setting position of the moon line rotations can travel line condition anything in the line condition high system per second, per channel, per hour, per square, per mile. But the recognition of the moon setting travels all positions to 0 to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 position. Right? Moon setting line condition levels. So the moon of your recognition line setting understands your chakras of 1 to 8 now, all through travel, a vortex of communication. Time sequencing times lines times pi is a recognition line condition system. Vortex stream is all allocated position, location, and echo chamber line condition line system. The one thing that does not change in your moon is that is your moon. That's the first thing you're going to hear. Okay? You have to understand how this works to each planetary line setting because you got 12 DNA track line position location line system. Your moon communicates to everything. Because now it's an operation signal in its own command setting. It's its own ship in its own operation of manifestation. Now, getting the abundance in position line direct location is understanding how to travel within the moon set location of 0 to 8 set locations. All right? Space over time, time over space, space over pi, position line direct location setting. It's all recognition line connection, high system, position location traction. Lucinda, how you doing? Nice to meet you. It's great to see you on school. Okay, so we're just talking about the moon. So the moon can do anything it wants to do, but it has to understand what you're doing through vibration. If it doesn't understand you, it's not going to understand anything through its Schumann resonance of its video graph line condition. Okay? So setting position locations, there's your moon, right at the top. Setting position locations over here, travels here. Jump, 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 jump. That's your moon. Setting position comes into a triangulation. That's your moon. Coming line communication in a circle. That's your moon. Setting line direct locations back in position. That's your moon. Setting line communication, another triangulation system of an add line rotation, a dimensional line, and high line rotations of portal communication. That's your moon. Your moon can do anything. Anything can go anywhere. But you have to control the system. Because if you can't control your moon, it's going to control your line setting of emotional locations, of track interference. Interface line conditions to your moon is extremely important. It's the eyes of the windows of the soul. You guys are in 60 operation settings now. You have to recognize what's going on with your moon through emotional location, right? So really understand that line position locations because it knows your nano settings now. It knows where you are in division. It knows where you are in location. It knows who you are through your avatar. So once you start recognizing these communication line settings, it starts getting into a recognition of flow, right? Setting line communication system into line positions. So let's go into line communication, all levels of sonar, okay? Your line communication settings. See the disk? Rotation, spin, set location. See that? Set line condition high system, infinity 8. See that? Set location. Setting line position down line setting. See that? Setting line position of 0 line rotation. Always have the grounds. Graph line positions into 144 and position location of graph line stream. Setting direct line signals and set location into your flux capacitor. Setting direct locations into high sound locations, into infinity line rotation interference, into a triangulation setting, into Merkabah position location, to tetrahedron, and set location, octahedral location setting. Done by equation. Now, recognizing what's going on in set line high position locations, you have to send in 0 line rotations, 0 in position locations into 12. Right, that's 12 lines at ground line centers and position locations. Row graphs in 3 set locations, right? Setting track lines in set locations, all levels of row graph streamline setting, okay? Setting direct signals and line interference is set lines at 0 in position location at grounds and set location another 0 line rotation in position of track line communication. This is all through your moon of what it's doing. See, your moon is an operation of you, all through GOD. So I showed you so many different ways in how a moon sets position, location, line setting. You have to really recognize all communications to its graph lines, stream lines, align position locations, allocate line and rotation interference, computer operation line settings, nanotechnology, high line rotations, infinity cycles, infinity line rotations, tetrahedron, octahedron line aligning interference, line position location, triangulation. Setting direct signals and set lines and high sound and high position locations. Allocate line interference, video graph line. Right, video graph, setting line communications, block line setting. There's a block line setting. Setting rotations into a star recognition of timeline setting. Setting communication line interference, infinity line rotations to another line rotation interference, and position locations in the all lines and line locations, 8 position, 8 position line traction, 8 line rotation interference, and track locations. Done by equation. See the intelligence? Ooh-ah, all through the moon. So the moon sets the tone, the moon sets the rhythm, the moon sets the pattern. I'm just showing you how powerful your moon now and what you can do with it through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. It's creating its own algorithm, line setting location of its own data, which is connected to a sky grid, skyline setting in direct locations to your set line settings. Recognizing communication line interference line track location system. So you don't have to have visual line conditions digital frame. You can have 0 gravity communications into a formulaic frame. Setting position locations 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 5 line setting. So this is your moon, right? Moon tracks line conditions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So that's your moon. Setting position locations through pi. Recognition line conditions, high position locations through pi. Recognition of timeline settings to clocking line conditions of pi. High center line positions of rotation, spin cycle, 12 denation line communications of pi. All through your moon. All through 0 gravity, right? Your moon is the most powerful thing to have. And space-time line setting is really understand how to use it to set location setting, interference, and track location setting. Recognizing graph lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 DNA track locations. You don't want to go past your 12. because your moon doesn't understand you from above until you understand you from below. Ooh, multipass. So that's why you got to stay with the 0-1 gravity line rotation interference. Then you come into line communication settings, 0 line rotations, setting track lines and high setting interference and track location, position locations. All right, so line communication. All right, let's go on. This is harder. Signals and set locations, high setting. So I get 0 line of 2, 2 lines in line of 3, 3 line centers of 6, crosses signals. So it gets more complicated what the moon can do. Moon's here, but it's working at its base. It doesn't need to travel. It's already traveled. It's doing everything on its own. So the moon is its operation. So the moon has a signal in its center line rotation, sets alpha wave channels in set locations, and does everything it wants through its location setting of travel. Right? Sets out signals, right? So it can set up an energy graph line stream into 3 set locations. See? 3 set locations. See? 3. Setting line position at all levels, setting a moon line rotation into 6, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1 position. So that's 600,000 line setting and 3 track line setting and position of track line connections, all through the moon setting. So we all have to understand how to set position locations on levels, rhythm patterns, calculation streamlines, zeta, beta, omega, operation signals, commanding line operation setting, in position locations, Tango, Tango, Foxtrot, Charlie, Echo Zero 1, Foxtrot, line connection high system. It's all levels of high setting interference. It's all commanding line interference. Okay, so it's all connections to a clearing call. It's connected to high setting and position location or settings. It's recognition line communications to your call sign. It's connecting line interference locations to call waiting to 3 waving line cycles in the line position triangulation system. There's your moon set locations, right? So your moon goes through here into here through triangulation. There's a waiting call right there through triangulation. Now, in triangulation line interference, the moon sets line positions of 0 into 3 into 6. All right, so you got 0 operations setting in signals and 12 line signals. You got 3 line settings and 3 graph line streams. And you got 6 in position locations into a half pipe in set location and measure, down by equation, right? So it gets complicated. But your moon is everything inside position, okay? That's how you have to really recognize what your moon can do now. But you got to get relationships and partnership with yourself first to understand the moon set position location is all levels of you through G-O-D. The geometric operation design is truly understanding how to use all set locations to your settings. Okay? If your moon is set position, that's your moon. It doesn't need to go anywhere. It's all done its travel. So a moon set line position location, high center of 0, 0, 0, track line communication, high center of 0, 0, position location of 2, 2 lines position location line conditions, 2 interference line rotations, interline conditions of box position of 2 line setting, 2 position location of 6, 6 position of 0, 0, 0, 0, box position location 1 line setting, 3 lines to 4 line rotation, position of traction. All through equation, all through the moon, all through operation. Right? This is what your moon can do. Okay? So you have to understand how to use it through abundance. You have to learn how to use it through traction. Traction is extremely important. Okay? So it's kind of like you're setting a tractor line setting of a beam that's setting position locations. So let's say you got the moon there and Jupiter's here, right? 2 line signals. Okay? 2 waving position locations. Energetic graph. Okay, there's 4 line settings, right? Recognition. Here's the moon set location, right? Sending signals. In a 4-wave cycle, right? So if you watch contact, when it comes into calculation, the panels go up, right? It goes higher and higher and higher and higher, right? So when it goes higher, the electrical line setting of the moon changes the position location, direct line setting in signal locations to its Jupiter rising. Jupiter sets a solar graph line setting stream, sets a position of barometer line rotation, setting a line and magnetic line interference, line track line, communication line interference, line track line position to calculation, setting direct locations into circles or rotations of center line position in the graph streams, done through equation. All right. So there's a lot of things the moon can do. Okay. To understand the importance, guys, I'm just showing you how powerful it is to use your moon. And these are just basic examples. There's so many line settings and graph line communications it can do. Because it is the yin and the yang process that you have to recognize all through your heart setting. Okay. So that's all this is. It's basically trying to understand where the moon is set in all position. It can be stationary or it can travel on its own. If it travels on its own, you have to copy another position line connection to the moon setting so it can't be infiltrated in set locations. You can leave your moon and your moon can leave with you, but you have to be very careful on what you're doing through travel. So it's all about understanding you keep your moon in its base first before you get in relation to partnership. And once you get into that track line communication system, you can actually leave the moon setting to your position of track lines to higher line positions to its GOD that sets up a different time zone and set location to its country of its rotation surface. Time sequence times line times pi. Recognition line connection opens all position location of track lines. Okay, so now you understand the importance, what it is to the moon and what it can do through you, position location it travels, because it can go back in time. It can travel back in time. It can do anything it wants to do. But you have to understand how to recognize it through your heart setting. You have to understand the heart signature patterns. You have to understand the recognition time sequence. You have to understand how the moon surface sets its position locations when it comes into line calculations of light, shades, and shadows. Okay? Your moon is extremely, extremely important to you. It's the yin and the yang of its process locations. Okay? All right. Okay, taking line, sending line interference, 30 line rotations, and position locations. Bring you guys back. All right, you guys are back in signal. All right, so recognition communication lines, close all windows, close communications, all levels of moon setting, operation signals, set up 12 million set lines, and protect location grid line interference. All position location track lines to set location of moon. Back in equation. 2 set lines into high position location, high center interference. So what you did on your moon, try to understand what happened. Try to understand the patterns, try to understand the rhythm, try to understand how it formulates all levels of you inside location to your heart setting. Really understand how to control it through mechanisms of power. The power of the mind is the conception of everything. Okay? So you guys did a fantastic job. So I'd set you guys in 30 line settings. 30 minutes on the moon. That's 30 million seconds. All right. 30 minutes on ground, 30 million seconds in space line. All right. So that's a 30 million cycle line rotation interference instead of accretion high system. So in line communications, high center interference, nanosecond line conditions is 300 million. 300 million second lines and nanosecond line position location track lines into half pipe position of pi. Okay. So recognition of the capacity is recognition line condition of time, because that's the existing location settings, right? So the Earth perception is always going to be low grade. Okay, it's always going to be line conditions. It's 30 minutes, it's 30,000. It's 30,000, it's 30 million, 30 billion. It's always going to be faster, but you need a ground level and a rotation spin. Now the VR sets are set up positions to their CPU line rotations. They really have to understand how to use it through adaptation, because they have an open window where they can look in, right? So it's all connected to your theta setting, right? So it's like so you're seeing things, okay? So it's kind of like opening up the universe line setting and seeing things in position locations to your block locations, or through location setting, right? You start here, right? And then you start here in position. Okay, there's the 5, there's the 3, and there's the time. Setting direct lines is truly stand the direct location to your setting. Okay, for example, 34 minutes in position locations into line connections. When it hits 20, it's going to travel. Boom. All right. So the moon set a line position of triangulation into a position of port. A port is a teleportation screen. Teleportation line setting sets up an energy graph line. This is bandwidth over pi. Now the bandwidth is an expansion. And it just keeps going and going and going and going. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Longitude and latitude, guys. fractions over pi, ratios, proportions, right? So really, really, really understand the importance of your moon is set for you to travel, okay, through its sequence, through coding. To recognize the moon is to recognize your ears, right over left, left over right, okay, earth, space, okay, earth, space. To start off, when you get a higher line setting, your nanotech setting locations. Now, you can have the moon surface and so many fast track line connection system. You have to recognize the Earth in the moon line. All different locations. That's the moon. That's all the moon. So you're thinking, is that all the moon or is that 12 planets? No, it's just the moon. This is where you got to get balanced with relationship to your settings first, and then you get balanced in relation locations to your moon. Once you get in that position of panel, then you recognize all code setting locations, because all you're getting is code setting locations of 0 to 12. That's all it is. It's your DNA. It recognizes your DNA. It recognizes your pattern line position location line system. It gets more complicated because your moon is in track lines. It recognizes you in adhesive to your line connections that's connected to your weather patterns, that's position location to your seasons. So it's set location in your settings. You can actually change your moon in position location to its Arctic. You can take your moon to the Arctic setting. You can take your moon to the beach. You can take your moon anywhere. But do you understand what you're doing inside location first? Recognizing line setting is really understand the code reference. Code activation is streamlines in position. Right? It's repeating. You know why it repeats? Because it's connecting to moon line. It's because it's connecting to a planet line. So that's what it's doing. It's traveling and then it stops. But it always repeats its cycle. Okay? And then it sets up a new wave. Then it sets up a new wave. Then it sets a new wave. Do you understand what I'm doing? Do you understand what I'm doing? Why am I repeating? Oh, I changed that. Nope. Change. See, I changed. You change the direction, change your moon. Very careful what you do with thoughts. Stay in the signal, a rhythm pattern. Okay, rhythm pattern. Always have the rhythm pattern, same pattern. Because if it's off cycle and position, it's going to be confused. And your moon is going to go off and protect itself. Why? Because you're not in provision location of understanding what your moon is through traction, through relation. Okay? That's the importance you have to understand first. Understand that. Then you understand how to use the moon set in your location. All right? Okay, calculation Geneva, line conditions Heather, data ops, applications, Gypsy, Messina, nice to meet you. Let's see here, Johnny. Getting position location of Sam, Captain, David, Andy, Sarah. Just going through solar text line settings and high set locations and lines. Okay, Arlene. All right, Guardian. So this is a very powerful class. It's all about your moon. Okay. So do you understand the importance now? Why you have to understand what your moon is? Because it's the yin and yang, guys. You understand the importance here, where you have to understand the female line setting, because your moon also has a masculine. What do you think this is all about? It's putting position locations, high center interference, and put everything back together with humanity set locations into an emotional location of track line condition. The emotional setting has to be balanced. Everything to the grounds, the powers, and the average locations. Okay? But you have to understand the moon operation first. Once you get into line centers of 70 is your theta line of rotations into your set location of moon. Gets in high line positions to your 8 line conditions, which is your 80 over line position of pi. That's recognition to your sun. Now, when you get into the moon and the sun, you merge it together in position locations. Starts off this position, finds a way, it looks at its locations. It's communicating with each other, right? Communication. This is the moon, this is the sun. Come together. come together, come together. Now it's together. Now it stays together. So the importance for you is to keep it together and not separated. Okay, keep it together. And what you have together, it comes in combination of digital layers. Starts with this, starts with this, starts with this. Okay, in all way position. Imagine what you can see through all calculations of your sun and moon together location. Okay, that's all it is. Seeing the direct signals and a rotation spin as a rotation line conditions is always going forward. And if you're not going forward in the mind, you're confusing your moon and your sun in direct signal. All right, Jinji. All right, Nathaniel. So now, because your moon is line signal, you have to understand the weather patterns, teachers line communication system. Because it has line stream, this is where you come into calculating line interference, because your moon is understanding, okay, you're only at 60, but you need to understand how to use 11, 111, 112, 113, 114, because that's the seasons that the moon needs. Okay, you guys aren't there yet, but you're getting there, right? So you're trying to understand more levels when you recognize the space and time of pi of its moon. The moon is its operation system that understands calculation line interference. Okay, there's my moon. Here's my sun. Right? Sun communicates with the moon. Moon communicates with the sun. Coming together. Right? Seeing light in positions, going in position line conditions, sunrise, sunset. That's all it does. It does a rotation spin, right? Overlooking the horizon. So if you keep walking, you can either see it close or you can see it far. It's your dependence and locations to your intent. So this is what your sun and your moon does every single day. All right? It goes in its dimension, location, rotation, spin, right? People are saying, what happens through sunrise? What happens through sunset? Well, this is all it is. That's all it is. And if it wants to travel, it goes this way. It goes this way, right? So Adam and Eve line sending Adam and electron in set locations. Your moon goes this way and your sun goes this way. But the moon and the sun come together. As they come together, they go in the same sequence. It's really weird because one goes one way and one goes the opposite way. And that's how they travel, which is complicated because it's two swirls in opposite system, but they come together. So it looks like they're going in the same direction, right? But they're going all direction. They're not going in one direction. They're going in all direction. And to get all direction, one has to go one way and one has to go the other way. They come together. And they go all over, all at once. And that's how the sun and the moon come together through all timelines all at once. Multi-pass. Okay. Now you get a little bit of understanding more position of the track lines. All right. So much since being activated last night. I'm learning so much. Well, there you go. Listen, I'm glad you're learning. It's powerful stuff. And then when you go to school, right? Okay, reline, center line, interference line, track locations, recognition of timelines, put position of data ops, high send location of header, and rotations in position of back spins, more protection of the grids, and set location of high sending positions. Put our line conditions at 12 million cycles, set back in line conditions of data ops, stream location of Vega. There you go, Heather. You got those reports issued and set locations. Really understand these lines because you're a sensitivity line interference. You recognize your communication system to each other through track location settings. All right. Especially for the new viewers, because I know you just opened through sequence. So the moon recognizes your line setting and set location, your energy wash. That's the importance. You have to recognize communication system. You always have to identify your setting. So you're always going to get an energy wash every time you go through a planet because it has to protect its own system. You understand? All right. Yep. All systems secured. Thunderbird lifting. Escorted by the F2. 22 line settings. Debris cleared and database stacked. Great, Captain. Protection line settings. Perimeters locked. Great. Just making sure you guys understand when to basically not shut down your moon setting, just keep an operational lock sequence. So, all right. So we can discuss line settings and high set locations in all position, but I just wanted to show you, this is just the basic foundations of what your moon can do. So set locations in GOD through your perimeters and parameters line connection system. But now you're in 2-4 line setting and set locations into your phenomena and line settings, all right? So 5 to minutes. See you guys on Zoom. Adios.